Is there really such a thing as rock bottom? Some point where you just can't take it anymore? Just that one point where you absolutely realize you can't go any further. And then you have those people that reach rock bottom and then they break out the shovels. There's just no stopping them. But here are some people that managed to turn around and go the other way. Okay, what was your holy hell, need to get my life together moment? Story 1. Happened just this week, actually. I've been suffering from anxiety and depression since 2015 when I let a girl really mess with my head. At the time, I had left a great job I enjoyed that paid the bills and then some, so it was a good gig. In the time of knowing this girl, I had alienated my entire friend group, who were more like my family because my real family and I have a very shaky relationship. That was 2016, and ever since, I've been completely alone. I've spent the last 3 years working jobs for no longer than 3 months at a time. I've had 10 different jobs in these 3 years. I've lost all sense of self and became more depressed because of that, and the feeling that I may never come to terms with who I truly am happy to be. All the while I've been stoned from sun up to the time I fall asleep at night, basically using weed as a crutch to enable myself not to turn my life around. I enrolled in community college January 2018, hoping to change all of that. All the while never being able to actually be sober for an entire day. I floated through 6 months of college absorbing basically none of the material, but somehow maintaining a 4.0 GPA. I've realized now that it's finals week that I've doomed myself doing that. I'm even more stressed now that I'm studying for all these finals and can't remember any of it. This last week, I've made the decision to quit smoking and truly try to make a change. It's now day 3 sober, and I honestly can't recall a time where I felt more clear-headed. Still stressed that I'm probably going to fail all my tests, but I know at least I'm putting in real effort now, and it feels so damn redeeming. What kind of job was he doing beforehand? It sounds like it was a job he lucked out in getting if it didn't require a college degree. There should be a follow-up on this one. I really hope he passes his exams. I'm glad he's now putting the real effort in, and it would be a shame to waste that 4.0 GPA, even if he did breeze through it. Story 2. 3 days ago. I'm cleaning my room because the landlord will be here tomorrow. It's 3 a.m. I'm sorting through stuff I need to get rid of. I find a letter that was assigned to me as a school project my senior year. The letter was supposed to be addressed to my future self. Being as invested as I was about the people around me liking me at the time, I asked other people to write to me instead. 3 people I knew did so I read their letters to me. I had read them before, but my memory is so bad I forgot what the hell they said. All 3 told me I was so awesome in their own way. Told me how nice I was. They appreciated me. All this stuff. I'm sitting here out of shape, in a job I don't in any way care about, in the town I grew up in, 4 total years later, and it dawns on me. Nothing about me has changed, other than my abilities declining and my hairline receding. Not a Godzilla thing. I totally hate myself. I spent 4 years of my only life pandering to people who didn't and don't care about me, instead of finding something I was interested in and absolutely focusing on that. Setting goals that I cared about. Trying to be a better person. Matter of fact, forget being a better person, just trying to be myself in some way. Letting myself be ambitious and selfish, lusting after and tasting success. Hell, I wouldn't mind having a degree in something by now. I wouldn't mind at least being worth more money, or even feeling fulfilled by goals that I've met. So I'm realizing just now that I need to get my life together. There's nothing wrong with doing work for other people, as long as that doesn't become your whole identity. Helping other people is great, but if you never have any time for yourself, it's just never going to be fulfilling for you. You need to figure out what you want to do, even if it might seem like the most trivial thing in the world. As long as it doesn't harm you or anybody else, then great, pursue it. Find a way to make it work. Story 3. I was depressed out of my Godzilla mind for about 1.5 years. It destroyed my life. I treated my friends like feces, quit all my hobbies, and my grades went to hell. I hated every second of being alive, and I was so ready to end it all. The only thing that kept me hanging on was the hope that I was going to get into a good college and get away from all the things that made me so sad. However, being depressed also made me not give a care about my college applications. So despite having a good GPA and ACT, I bombed the essays and turned parts in late, which meant I didn't get into any of the schools I wanted to go to. The day the decisions came out, I was a wreck. I spent 2 days sitting in my room, bawling my eyes out and cutting like crazy because I thought I had no reason to live anymore. Thankfully, I had a moment of clarity where I realized that the only place to go was up, and that I was the only one responsible for making that change. I was finally sick of feeling sorry for myself and letting myself wallow in being so lonely and hopeless. It's been a few months now, and I can honestly say that I'm happy for the first time in a very long time. I've put effort back into all the relationships in my life. I finished high school strong, and I'm putting so much effort into my mental and physical well-being. Having my dreams fall apart and realizing it was my own fault was the wake-up call I needed to realize that things needed to change if I wanted to stay alive. That feels like a pretty heavy realization to have right before you're finishing high school. Honestly, this sounds like the confession of someone going through a midlife crisis. Depression can be as debilitating as any physical disability. If he truly got out of this hole by himself, that's amazing. At least he was able to foster his relationships and rekindle them again. Story 4. I had just been left by my now ex-wife, who left out of the blue to go be with her new thing in Hawaii. I hate Hawaii now. Through a complicated arrangement where I was living in an apartment owned by my ex's boss, this bridge got burned during the divorce. I was being kicked out and was in the process of sleeping in my car and trying to find a new place. I was extremely depressed and was drinking all day every day, even while driving. So one day, I was driving home from work, about a 90-minute commute wherein I would drink beer and smoke weed to stay alert. A cop pulled behind me on the freeway and followed me for a good 5 minutes. He then put on the lights. I seriously almost pooped my freaking pants. I've never been so scared in my life. I knew I was done for. There was no way to cover up. So I pull over, he walks up, and before he even reaches my window, a car rear-ends another car at full speed about 50 feet behind us. The cop says something like, "Get out of here safely," and then turned around running to go address the car accident. I was seconds away from losing my license, my job, my whole life really. I didn't drink for a few months after that encounter, and I've since gotten that under control. But damn, it was the scariest moment ever. But it sure kicked my butt into gear. Story 5. In August of 2015, at age 25, I was arrested for 3 counts of substance possession and fraudulent possession of identifying information, between 10 to 50 items. Over the course of 4 months, I had managed to take around $50,000 directly from banks, without resorting to good old-fashioned identity theft, all to support my secret substance habit. The final tally, once I was in custody, was 7 felonies, all in one shot. Before this, I had never so much as had a traffic ticket, and not a single person knew that I had become an addict or criminal, including my girlfriend of 3 years. I was quite literally leading a double life, and eventually lost everything. My job, reputation, friends, family, girlfriend, cars, apartment, dog, instruments, everything. Gone. I served 2 years, 9 months on a 6-year sentence in a Texas prison system, TDC, and was released on parole 2 weeks ago. Wish me luck. Being stripped naked with 50 other men while guards scream at you and degrade you, shave your head and pack you into a 30-man cage, nuts to butts as they called it, was my holy hell moment. And that was just the first 5 minutes of prison. There were many, many more to come. Now, after countless hours of planning and thinking about it, I finally get the chance to get my life together. Here's to second chances. Sorry I got all serious on you guys, but thought I'd share. Too long didn't read? Me and 50 other guys shaved our heads and got naked. Story 6. Short version: was awful to a chaplain, got sober, changed me forever. Long version: in the Air Force, first duty station was on Guam. I stayed drunk, and I mean a fifth a day drunk. got too wild at the barracks and was taken in by the security police. A few hours later, locked in a room at the cop shop, and the duty chaplain walked in to talk to me. I asked him what it was like to be a virgin. He kind of laughed and told me he wasn't that kind of chaplain, pulled out his wallet and showed me pictures of his wife and kids. I don't remember what we talked about after that, but he got them to release me and took me back to my barracks. I remembered what I said to him the night before, and it was like God slapped me upside my head. A chaplain gets out of bed in the middle of the night, leaving his family to talk to a drunk that he doesn't even know, and the best I got is to ask him that. I wish I could say I never touched a drop after that, but it took a very hard year of trying to stay straight before I got there. I've been clean and sober since November 8, 1984. The lasting lesson for me is that you never know when a few kind words can change someone's life forever. I don't know that man's name, but I thank God for him every day. That's a really interesting situation to make someone click and think about turning around. I don't think it was so much that this guy was a chaplain, but that he was willing to get out in the middle of the night and talk to this guy. It would have been so easy for this person to get offended and just refuse to see this guy or talk to him any further. It's really the strength of the chaplain and the kind words that really got to him. Sometimes it's not a fight fire with fire situation. Sometimes you just have to treat somebody like a human for them to realize that they too are human. Story 7. When my best friend told me to get the hell out of his apartment after I showed up there after a 3.5-day substance bender. I must have said something to him, but I can't remember for the life of me what it was. He's spoken to me exactly one time since. I miss him, but I've gotten sober and I got a new job and go to the gym every other day now. Maybe you can rekindle? If he was your best friend once, he can forgive and move on. Give it a shot. Good job, by the way. There's no worse feeling than knowing you said something unforgivable to a good friend and having no idea what it was or what to do. You'd give anything to take it back, and at the same time you don't really want to be confronted with what it was that you said, and feeling like you don't really deserve to be forgiven. Having done this to a good friend once, I remember just wanting to drive to their house and asking them to hit me. Repeatedly. Anything to take away the pain. Then slowly realizing that I had messed it up for good and there was no going back. It took a long time to move on from that, but eventually you will. Story 8. Just another alcohol-related post here. Drinking 3 pints of 100 proof Smirnoff a day. I thought I was functional. I got sick with a virus. Nothing serious, but I couldn't keep food or liquids down for 48 hours. I was throwing up and had a high fever. Through all of this, I was shaking in my bed and managed to still keep my vodka down because the thought of an alcohol withdrawal seizure scared the hell out of me. Cleaned up a month later, and now I'm just over 2 months sober. Stuff needed to change, and it has gotten better. Sounds like me about a 1.5 years ago. Sweaty, fever, couldn't eat or drink without throwing up, but that vodka sure made me feel better. Had my boyfriend take me to the ER that night when he got home from work because it finally dawned on me that my dumb butt wasn't sick, I was withdrawing. The shame of walking into the hospital still makes me cringe. I've had some ups and downs, substituted wine instead of vodka only to drink randomly, but once I take one sip, I'm done for. I don't know how to drink and not black out. Today is day 10, and hopefully many, many more are to come. Good luck on your journey. Story 9. It was 2014. I was working a dead-end retail job for 14 years. Bad marriage, overweight, hated life. Tried, or so I thought, to get myself out, but I realized later all I did was wallow in self-pity that no one wanted to hire me. One day at work, I was getting up from the computer at work, and the store manager, whom I had never really talked to, just randomly said, "So what are you doing with your life? Why are you even here? Don't get me wrong, you're a great worker, but you're better than this place." We ended up having a really long conversation about life and goals, etc. I was a little mad at first, but after going home to think about it, I realized what he said was true. The next day, I was in better spirits. The next week, I told my husband I wanted a divorce. Over the next few months, I started to seriously look for work, enrolled back in school, started eating healthy, and eventually lost 85 pounds. A few months after our convo, and many interviews later, I found a great job. I make a living wage and then some. And just last year, I bought a house. Wow. And all it took was just someone to ask what were they doing with their life. And not just asking the question, following through and getting to the deep root of the situation. How did the divorce go down? It must have gone her way if she was able to buy a house. It doesn't sound like there are any kids involved. Thankfully, they weren't caught in the middle of this. Story 10. Rock bottom. When he told me that he wanted to be like Romeo and Juliet and meant it, as in the end of the play. I realized much later that I had been gaslighted into oblivion by this person. I remember being locked in his garage, that was his bedroom, for days and not allowed out for food, only to pee. I wasn't allowed to leave his house or have my phone without his observance. He was psychologically and systematically abusive and would regularly choke me or slap me, blaming me and yelling when someone would flirt with me, only allowing me to wear clothes he approved of, etc. Being fed the same old, "I am the only one who will ever love you and put up with your stuff" spiel. I still have long blank spots in my memory that I have no recollection of what happened, probably repressed for my own sanity. When I got out, I had no idea who I was, because he no longer wrote my story or defined me. Rock bottom was literally not knowing who I was, because he had taken me away from myself. P.S. I'm better and stronger now, but still ticked that younger me was treated that way. Story 11. When I stepped on the scale and was within 15 pounds of hitting 300. My heaviest was 287. Started eating less, counting calories, switched to diet soda, going for long walks. I hate running and jogging. Currently weighing at 184 pounds. Still a bit overweight BMI for my height, but it's way healthier than being obese. Edit to add. Thanks for the gold. Lots of support here too, which I didn't expect. I went to the doctor yesterday for a physical and weighed in at 183. To anyone starting the journey, it's not easy, but it's worth it. It's also slow, and should be. Rapid weight loss is usually gained back, but steady loss indicates positive lifestyle adjustments. It took me just under 5 years to drop around 100 pounds. It's hard to describe just how much better life is at a more normal weight. People treat you nicer. I was freaked out the first time someone checked me out because it had literally never happened before. Clothes are way easier to find, and airplane seats are much more comfortable. Story 12. Jailed for a victimless, intimate crime. Got out and had to register for 10 years. My friends abandoned me. Got fired from my job. Kicked out of my apartment. Finding a girlfriend was out of the question. After 3 years of depression and self-induced misery, I decided to try something new, to just be happy and change my attitude. After a few short months, I had some understanding friends, went out, and had a good time. I found an apartment and a job that didn't background check. After 5 years, I met not only the woman of my dreams, but a person I could be open with. We hiked the entire 2,700-mile PCT together. I lost my depression and saved enough for a house, and started going back to college at the age of 38. This month, I got my letter of release from the police registration office, and I graduated college 2 weeks later. I'm in an internship, land survey, marking 2 times what I made in the service industry. Conclusion? Forced positive thought changes me from self-unaliving to extremely happy. I don't know if you could call this forced. It's more like a choice. I think if anything, he was forcing himself to be depressed. It sounds like he discovered there were other options, and changing that attitude definitely turned things around. Story 13. I fell for a guy I met on study abroad. He dumped me the second I left and started dating his housemate. I was crushed. Thought I could get over him by hooking up with some guy I met on Tinder, but I actually just got pregnant. While I was waiting for the doctor to perform the abortion, I was just kind of sitting there alone, breathing in this laughing gas, and I started crying uncontrollably. I was broken-hearted over one guy and pregnant from someone else. I realized how Godzilla pathetic that was, and I could hardly bear it. I realized things had to be different. I figured out that I had been using relationships as band-aids for crippling self-doubt and anxiety. An incredible therapist helped me very much. A year later, I finally took the plunge and started antidepressants when it became apparent that I was still crying a lot, despite my circumstances being objectively great. Hitting rock bottom causes me to finally get help I really needed. That felt really good to write. Story 14. Sorry if this is formatted wrong. I've never posted online before. I'm a long-time lurker on here, but only recently created a username. Honestly, my holy hell, what have I done with my life has been a long time coming. It started in New Year's Eve 2012 when I was intimately assaulted. I spent almost a year following that getting drunk and chain-smoking myself into oblivion. I moved home and got a decent job waiting tables, but was definitely still bitter and always drunk. I'm working hard now to 1. Act like I'm an adult, and 2. Be better than I am now. I guess I'm still trying to pick myself up, but I've moved past not eating and always drinking to having a job and trying to control my drinking. Life's hard, but I'm halfway out of the hole, I think. I assume this will be buried, but I guess thank you for reading. Sorry if the formatting was wrong or I spelled anything wrong.
Please like and subscribe if you made it this far. I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the video and have a wonderful day.
Story 15. When I found out my dad had cancer. I had been crashing on my sister's couch, not really doing anything after bailing on an abusive relationship. I was depressed and had just kind of given up. When my dad got sick, I knew I needed to move back to our home state to be there for him. I knew that to be there for him, I needed to take care of myself too. I got a job, found a cheap apartment room to rent, and decided that I needed to make some friends so I wouldn't be totally alone all the time. I joined a dance class, made friends, and lost around 70 pounds. My dad and I had a great 3 years together. He did end up passing away in January, and I miss him terribly, but I have no regrets about the time we had together and the changes I was able to make in my life. I'm about to cry on that one. Sometimes being there for yourself can start with being there for someone else. I'm so happy this person was able to clean themselves up, but also be there for their dad. It's sad that they're gone, but thankfully having those years together might lessen the loss a little bit. I'm glad that person treasured what they had before it disappeared. Story 16. When my best friend looked me in the eye and said, "If you don't leave her, you will perish." It took that to make me realize that I had spent the last 3 months drinking myself to sleep every night because the girl I was engaged to spent most of her time alternating between telling me how worthless and useless I was and accusing me of cheating. She told me daily how pathetic I was and how I was wasting my time with writing because I would never be published. It took 3 tries to finally get away from her, and then a wild couple of months where I tried to forget all of that stuff she put me through while also swinging on a roller coaster of depression. 6 years later, and I've had a short story published, a novel published, and I've been in therapy to fix the things she did to my brain. Story 17. For nearly 2 years, I was unemployed and supported by my father and living with some friends. Then, I was kicked out for being hard-headed. Then immediately after, my girlfriend of 6 years broke up with me and told me she would only get back together with me if I went to a mental hospital for a week. I went to one for 2 days before my mom had to come tell the doctors to release me. Now, I'm medicated, and I work 2 jobs at Walmart and Dairy Queen, and have a new girlfriend. I'm much happier now, but wow, sometimes you really need to hit that holy hell moment to get yourself together. Before, I couldn't even leave my house by myself or make phone calls. But now, I'm working 2 customer service jobs and loving it. Story 18. Early morning hours of my 31st birthday, I was geared up and with a very inexperienced college guy who really needed to clip his nails, and who then broke down because he couldn't stay hard. I had met him less than an hour before at a party where I had been drinking and doing any substance I could find and sucking breastises. I put my clothes on and called my friend who lived not far away from the house I was at and asked her to pick me up. I cried in her car and decided I needed to get myself together. It's been 2 years and I haven't touched the 80s yuppie powder or any hard drug since then. Still sometimes make questionable choices in the intimacy department, but I'm getting better. Wow. Do you wonder if this person wouldn't have had this moment if the intimacy was any better? Like maybe it was the best intimacy of their lives. Would they have stuck with it? Would their I have to get myself together moment come later? Story 19. I had an unruly bar patron in a rear naked choke. Tight enough so he knew I was serious, but loose enough he was still conscious, and it just pulled him off his feet towards the door. I was 28 going on 29 and just hit 4 years as a bouncer, and the same duration as a college dropout. 4 years of late nights watching the crowd with what I hoped was the right amount of diligence and paranoia, escorting people to the door, cleaning up spilled beer and vomit, and the occasional inexplicable splash of blood on the door to the beer room. Once the guy was out and the situation dealt with, I thought to myself, maybe it's time I finished that English degree. After a fashion, I did. Story 20. I was in a 24-foot camper with a rotting floor. There were trash bags for windows. The roof leaked onto the couch. Big step up from homelessness a few months prior. It was pouring rain. The wind was about to rip the windows out, and I had nowhere safe to take my newborn son. I rode out a tornado, apologizing to this brand new human that we did not do better for him. My husband got home and I told him, I don't care what we sell or who we owe money to for it. We need a house. We have to do better. All it had taken was a layoff and financial emergency to knock us to the dirt 2 months after deciding to start trying for a family and getting pregnant. And it took selling literally everything we owned that wasn't my husband's work vehicle to put money down on a house. But I'm watching my toddler play with his toys in a real house. I'm pregnant again. We are way, way more secure now. And all it took was everything. Best thing we've done. Story 21. When I literally became a case study. I was 18 and on my 3rd stint in a refeeding clinic for anorexia. Every time I went in, I would be hyper-compliant until they let me out and then immediately revert to my old behavior. The 3rd time, I had a psychiatrist ask me if I could be a case study for their thesis on the rate of relapse and mortality in anorexia youth. I was 32 kilos, 70 pounds, at 5'4". I had the bone density of an astronaut. I have so many digestive problems now that were only worse then, and somehow got the idea that I was going to be someone's case study was the moment I figured out I was going to expire if I kept this up. I am nearly a decade older now, and I weigh a much healthier amount. No idea what it is because I don't own a scale, and haven't in over a year. It's often still a struggle, and likely will be for life, but I'm doing a lot better now. Story 22. This was August of 2017. I had lost a second job, had to go on short-term disability due to my weight, had gotten into a car accident a few months prior due to issues stemming from my weight. I was a mess. Just everything kind of hit me, and I knew I had to get my metaphorical stuff together. I still have a long way to go, but since then, I lost a bunch of weight, got proper medication and treatment for my health, and have a job I love. Like I said, I still have a ways to go, more weight to lose, still new at my job, so I still want to prove myself, etc. And I could never have gotten this far without my girlfriend and my family. They're the best, seriously. Story 23. I am lactose intolerant. I was obese and didn't care what I did with my body. I didn't work out, I didn't eat right, I didn't even maintain myself well. I one day ate 3 pints of ice cream in one sitting. I got incredibly sick. I mean, almost anyone would, but even more so. After several days of feeling like absolute trash, I decided enough was enough and started working out and eating healthy. Within a year, I was down 70 pounds, and by 18 months I was down 100 plus, and I've kept it off. That discipline helped me in other things in life. I got a better job and grew as a person, taking much more care of myself, relationships, and my surroundings. Amazing what 3 pints of ice cream can do. Story 24. I was dancing with a woman at a bar when I tripped and fell, which led to a compound fracture of my left ankle. After surgery, I was told that if I continued the way I was living, it would lead to an early grave. I was drinking all of the time, had high blood pressure and diabetes. I quit drinking, changed my diet, and got my life together. That was more than 8 years ago. Before all of this happened, I was at a dead-end job. My relationships never lasted and felt like I was going nowhere fast. Today, I'm 2 classes away from obtaining a degree. I have a great job, and I'm getting ready to buy a house with the greatest woman I've ever met. Story 25. I was 25 and subletting a hellhole apartment from a coworker in this restaurant we both worked at for the summer. I didn't graduate high school and had worked these ball-busting jobs since I was 17 and had really no future prospects. I was sitting up one night on the computer and had the, I can't believe this is where I am and this is what I'm doing intrusive thoughts. I really was at rock bottom. I looked at my local community college website that night and was signed up for classes the next day. I eventually got my GED as well so that I could transfer to university after my time was done there. I'm getting ready to start my master's in education in 2 weeks. Story 26. I was pregnant at around 23. I had recently dropped out of college and knew that I couldn't take steps on that road since I was only working at a coffee shop and had no real future in any areas of my life. Had an abortion, finished college. Now I'm 32 and doing great. I'll probably consider having a kid in a year or 2. I was thinking about how cool it was you have that username since so many are already taken. Story 27. I had given up pretty much my entire life to my girlfriend at the time. I pretty much just woke up and tended to her every need until I went to bed. I felt like a slave. It was a terrible experience. I had given up most of my life for a year. I wasn't doing my hobbies, I wasn't paying attention to school, etc. It's a very long, complicated story, but basically I realized I needed to cut her out. When I finally did, my life completely changed, and I turned it completely around. Story 28. 3 years of unemployment and realizing that every problem was because of my presentation, substance use, and how I spoke. I spent 3 months losing flab, 370 to 340, sold my PC and gaming stuff and bought some new clothing and got a haircut, started NA for my Walter White addiction, and shotgunned my pathetic resume and got hired at a call center for AT&T. 5 years later, I'm now making more than 3 times as much as that call center, $18K to $65K, married and traveled to Japan twice. If you told me 5 years ago I'd be here, I'd have called you and myself insane. Story 29. When she told me she was pregnant, I was 17 years old. That was 28 years ago, and we're still happily married, although a few bumps in the road along the way. But it was a cold dose of reality at 17 that I had a child on the way, and I needed to be prepared for that and get serious about my direction in life. I'm happy to report our son, now 27, is doing great as well, lives with his girlfriend, and about to embark on a culinary career. Story 30. Any thoughts that I had my mental health under control had been shattered when I was driving home from being at my best friend's house talking for hours. But the moment I started pulling from the driveway, I missed him so much it hurt my chest. I started to cry because I knew it couldn't ever work. Being with him was the best feeling I'd ever had, but I knew that it wouldn't ever be enough because I was broken. Therapy has helped a bit, I guess. Story 31. Told my non-confrontational dad I thought I had a drinking problem. Having him flat out tell me I really did have a drinking problem was the end of me drinking. My brother-in-law is the most compassionate, kind person I know. He was the first person to use the word alcoholic to describe me. Even though I already knew I had a problem, hearing him say, "She's an alcoholic," was a huge wake-up call. Story 32. When I had gotten my heart broken by yet another guy and was crying in my bed and searching for a reason to live. Right then and there, I realized I needed to stop trying to find people who make me happy. I need to learn to make myself happy because I'm the only permanent person in my life. Now I've lived with that thought in mind for a while, and I haven't been in such a good place mentally for years. Story 33. One week, I was so irresponsible with my money that I got paid on a Friday and 3 days later had only $20 to get me through the next payday. I was so depressed, hungry, and embarrassed. I never considered myself rich until I had so little that I worried every second of the day how I would feed myself. Respect to those who have made it through chronic poverty. Story 34. I was in a minor car accident a few months back and got laid off at work 2 weeks ago. That definitely feels like an I need to get my life together moment. The car accident was because I was tired. I was tired because I don't like my job that much and it made me kind of depressed. Maybe getting laid off will fix it, or at least give me time to figure something out. Story 35. Dropped out of college, moved my way up the managerial ladder at Lowe's for the next 3 years. Was offered a promotion to department manager and saw myself working retail at 50, still taking hell from entitled customers. Went back to college and am now doing what I really love. No offense to retail workers. I just don't like people enough to make a career of that stuff. Story 36. During my first Mensa meeting when we all started swapping our IQ scores, it dawned on me that if you have to tell everyone how smart you are, you're not that smart to begin with. The rabid insecurity in that room is what convinced me it was time to start accomplishing real stuff in life instead of skirting by on some test scores from long ago.
Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.